Thanks everybody for joining us today for this panel discussion. We hope you and those around you are well, wherever you may be. We have a variety of people from different areas of the world that are attending as well as presenting today. So thank you very much for joining us. As the title says, we're going to be talking about some of the key initiatives to address evolving library needs. Today's conversation is going to focus on increasing librarian efficiency, enhancing patron experiences through initiatives like linked data, controlled digital lending, interlibrary loan for eBooks, and more. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to start with some introductions of who the panelists are, and then we're going to move on to different topical areas for discussion, and you can see those listed there. And then we're going to conclude with a general Q&A. So now for the introductions. My name's Scott Schutze. I'm a lead product marketing manager. I have worked for Ex Libris Clarivate company for quite some time, approximately 20 years in different roles, starting with Serial Solutions, then ProQuest, then Ex Libris, and now Clarivate. So thank you very much for having me today be your host. And then I want to introduce Katie Birch.
Hi, Scott. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm Katie Birch. I'm Vice President of Resource Sharing in the Ex Libris and Innovative teams.
Okay, Lily.
Hi, my name is Lily Da'i. I'm a product manager with Alma.
Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Greenberg. I'm the Director of Product Management for Digital Solutions at Ex Libris, including Rosetta, a digital preservation solution, and Alma Digital, which is the digital asset management aspect of Alma, the library management solution of Ex Libris.
Okay, last is Jessie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessie Ransom, and I'm a lead product manager for Leganto. For those of you who may not be aware, Leganto is the Ex Libris course materials solution.
Okay, so we're going to, since the introductions are now beyond us, let's go to the first question to our panelists. This one focuses on increasing librarian efficiency. There's a movement prior to the pandemic and exacerbated by it to streamline and simplify library operations. So Lily, we're going to start with you, but what are some of the key areas of efficiency that libraries are currently focusing on?
So even before the pandemic, libraries found themselves trying to streamline workflows. There used to be a lot of duplicate work across many systems. So having a unified system where you could do things once really frees up your librarian's time to do the actual work that you study to be a librarian for. So you can use your cataloging expertise and all the things that make you a librarian, and not just typing in the same thing over and over again in different systems. And the pandemic really exacerbated things by not giving librarians access to the actual libraries, and being able to provide patrons the access that they want is always a challenge. Patrons expect a lot of access. Budgets don't always allow that amount of access. Being able to do it when you can't get to the library makes it even worse. So having a system where you can really, really easily give electronic or digital access from home while in quarantine was really very helpful. And a lot of things got developed during that period. And having, for example, in Alma, the fact that I can go into the community zone with a click of a button, activate an electronic collection, having it automatically go to CDI, our article database, and tell it what I have so my patrons can find it in discovery, get a sushi to let me know what the usage is, have it all go automatically to analytics where I can do cost usage reporting. I have to do very little work, and I can focus on analyzing the data, understanding my patrons' needs, doing the actual real important work of helping my patrons get what they need in the least amount of work. So I think that's something that's really important to libraries today and is becoming more and more important all the time.
Thanks a lot, Lily. Katie, how about you? What's your perspective?
It's similar to what Lily said about a unified solution, which is kind of the origins of Alma, but with resource sharing, it's something that I've been hearing a lot recently, and I think it's been exacerbated perhaps by the pandemic, is that it's no longer ideal to have lots of different applications to manage resource sharing. So libraries want to connect with lots of different networks and services for resource sharing, but to really have one tool that enables integration and interoperability with those resource sharing systems and integrates very tightly with the ILS is something that I'm hearing now a lot. So I talk to customers every week, and it's something that I hear, this desire for a unified solution for resource sharing is a new thing. And I think in part that was exacerbated by, as Lily said, during the pandemic, just because of working remotely, managing all the different systems, getting access to those systems was pretty challenging, and libraries functioned at a very high level throughout the pandemic. So what can they do now to really be more efficient following the pandemic?
Okay, thanks a lot, Katie. Jesse, do you have anything to add to the response?
I think we're really sensing a trend here. So I'll say from the Leganto perspective, we also, hear about the efficiencies of working in a single system with course materials, having one place where you can go to see all of the information about what's being used in courses from inside of Alma, using those Alma workflows to provide materials. We also talk about efficiencies from the end user side as well, the faculty and the student side, having them making things easy for faculty and students so that they can work in a single system and not have to leave their workflows. But just stepping up a level, everyone, I want to say everyone, but I'll say many of the libraries that I work with are struggling with vacant positions right now and trying to do more with fewer staff. This definitely isn't new to libraries in general, but it's also definitely not going away right now. So many of the libraries, as always, are looking for opportunities to streamline those tasks. And we're talking about a single system, but I think the other big piece of this is being able to rely on technology to take care of the types of tasks that technology can reasonably handle. This is something that we always aim to do with Ex Libris products in general, but just a very small example from Leganto, we recently added the option to have course materials automatically mark as complete if there's an eBook with an unlimited user license. So this is something that the library doesn't need to review. You have access to it. It's a small example, but I think it's a good example of the type of thing that we're really trying to do to help make things easier for you. It can be, I think, hard to trust technology to do something that you've been doing by yourself for many years, but it also has really become unsustainable for a lot of libraries to try to do these somewhat tedious tasks that really can be taken care of automatically for you.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's move to the next topic. The next topic is enhancing patron experiences. Libraries continue to evolve to support changing patron expectations and behaviors. We're going to start with Daniel this time, but what are some of the areas that libraries are focusing on to enhance and enrich patron experiences?
So patron experience is particularly important when it comes to digital asset management. I know the world is going digital, and libraries are on the forefront of this movement. Much of the material which is collected and harvested by the libraries is born digital beyond the digitized content, which has become sort of the first and main access point to library materials by the end users, especially following the pandemic. And it's not just about storing the digital content. It's also about providing the patrons with a transformative use of the physical, audio-visual experiences, full text search, and so on. Patrons' expectations around discovering and consuming digital content are growing with time. So we, as Ex Libris, we have to, of course, provide a similar experience to what they receive in other systems out there, which you're familiar with, social media and so on, where everything is accessible and fast. So we focus a lot on continuously optimizing the patron experience, searching the content, discovering, and delivering the content to the end user in the highest possible quality, and including all the required descriptive metadata so they know exactly what they're seeing. And one of the challenges for us as Ex Libris is knowing what the patrons want, since we usually directly collaborate with the staff. So in many instances, the libraries run trials with a closed group of users, of patrons, and circulate the feedback back to us, to Ex Libris, creating in a very efficient triangular communication channel.
Fantastic. Jesse, do you want to add to what Daniel just said?
Sure. Yeah, one of the things that I am hearing about a lot, talking about a lot, is really the idea of just making it easier for end users to work with the library in general. And this lines up with what Daniel was saying as well. You know, we know that faculty are very, very busy. We know that students have 1,000 things that are thrown at them all the time. You know, looking for ways to kind of embed the library into the places where faculty and students already are. Where are they already working? Where are they already interacting with technology? Offering library services as part of those additional platforms, you know, means that students and faculty don't need to kind of step outside of what they're doing to come to the library website to work with the library. So this is really an area that we've always been focused on with Leganto, you know, embedding the library specifically into the learning management system and into the courses in the learning management system. But really it's about kind of offering the library services and the library support in a way that makes it very easy to actually use the library. And in doing that, you know, making the library more valuable to your patrons, looking at the things that are hard for them today. Where's the disconnect? Where's the places where they need to kind of step outside of whatever they're doing to work with the library? This is also something that we're really focused on with Leganto this year and also over the next year, you know, optimizing those faculty and student workflows. We're working on a user experience upgrade, and this has involved quite a bit of discovery into how faculty find new course materials, how they build resource lists for their courses, how they expect to work with the library, or for the ones who don't work with the library, what would be helpful to them, what are the challenges there. We've taken all of this information into account into our faculty experience, and we really want to simplify that experience and, you know, in doing that, enable the library to provide this additional value to their faculty and students. You know, again, getting back to the idea of efficiencies, you know, resulting in more efficiencies for the library, just by making it easier to work with faculty and to help support them.
Fantastic. How about you, Katie, from the resource sharing perspective?
Yeah, so resource sharing is, you know, when you think about it, it's actually a really amazing service. The fact that a library will work really hard, somebody in a library will work really hard to get whatever the user is asking for is just incredible. And there's a uniqueness there that I'm not aware of in any other, you know, area of e-commerce, right? You have to buy it from Amazon. You've got to do the legwork yourself to try and find it. So the fact that library staff do that on your behalf is amazing. But that multiple system situation that I just talked about for the staff, it's the same for the patron in today's paradigm, really. Often a patron is bounced from one system to another or to a request form to get the request to that amazing member of staff. And as Daniel said, you know, the service has to be accessible and fast. And so as those patron expectations change in the same way that our own expectations change, we're all consumers, means that an e-commerce like service is really important and is going to be increasingly important. So that speed and ease of use are really fundamental. The patron wants to know when they request something, how long it's going to take for the item to reach them. And current systems, really, you kind of put your faith in the system and hope one of those amazing library staff will find the item and get it to you. But if it's not timely, you know, if it doesn't arrive on time, if it doesn't arrive in time for me to review it for my paper or for the work that I have to do for a grant or whatever I'm doing as an academic, you know, so maybe we're just missing a tiny little piece of the puzzle there. So what we've been working on with Rapido is really trying to figure out a way that we can present what we call offers to the user so that they can make smart decisions about whether they want a print copy of a book, because it's going to take 4 days to arrive, but they'll have it for a whole semester maybe, or whether they want a digital copy of a chapter from that said book, because there's only one chapter that they're really interested in for their research. And what I'm really excited about with Rapido is the fact that a lot of customers say to me that it's really transformed that patron experience. And that's so rewarding, but it just means that the library staff are working as hard, but the system's working harder to get that material for the user.
Thanks, Katie. We're going to move to the next topic, which is controlled digital lending, other known as CDL. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the realm of CDL. And hold on for a second, just make sure I didn't skip a slide. Okay. So providing access to materials to patrons is a fundamental role of any library. To lend those materials effectively, CDL is being used by many libraries. Daniel, can you tell us some more about the background of CDL and the approach by Ex Libris? What's the role of the community?
Sure. So controlled digital lending, CDL, it's a developing practice. It still is, even though it's really been around for a long while. But for many years, it's been sort of semi-dormant, more as an afterthought. But really in the last several years, it's become a strategic necessity, obviously, naturally following the pandemic. And basically CDL, which probably all of you are familiar with, it allows the libraries to lend a digital copy of a physical resource in a lend-like print manner. That is in the same way in which the libraries lend the physical resource itself, primarily maintaining the own-to-loan ratio between the number of copies on the shelf paralleled by the number of users who can actually access the digital surrogate. Controlled digital lending can give the libraries and patrons the option of accessing materials in a more flexible manner, so providing that transformative use. So it's not just about scanning the material, but it's also zooming in and out and providing better accessibility and so on. Alma is an easy jumping board to CDL, since as a unified resource management system, both the physical source and the digital surrogate are both managed in a single system. So this has been proving very useful for us and the community. So not just to provide, it doesn't just provide the streamlined CDL workflows, managing the reciprocal relations between the physical and the digital, but it also allows us to provide a better and enhanced copyright safety net to the institutions, which is, of course, a crucial aspect of the CDL workflows. Since we have, as Alma, we have all information about the number of copies on the shelf, how many are currently on loan, and so on. So we've been working extensively with the customers to define the challenges and the possible solutions. We, as Ex Libris, we don't take a stand as to whether or how CDL should be implemented, but we simply provide a set of configurable tools which allows each institution to apply their own interpretation of the copyright laws. So we started off originally with an advisory group of many institutions, mainly from North America, really of diverse types and sizes, and defining the main building blocks which are required to be in our workflows. And then we moved on to a focus group, which was really drilling down to the smallest details of the workflows, and that work with that focus group is ongoing. So Alma Digital specifically already provides a complete workflow of CDL for short-term loans, mainly tailored for course resources, including storing the scanned files, creating policies, maintaining the own-to-loan ratio between the print and the digital copies, and managing a wait list of patrons to access the resource, in addition to usage analytics and more. So just relating to what Jesse mentioned earlier, there's a big focus on automation to allow the staff to set up the policies just once and clear their table for their non-administrative and important tasks. Future development plans, which are currently being discussed with the focus group, include CDL for long-term loans, fully integrating into the Alma request workflow, and automating the reciprocal relations between the print and the digital, And in parallel, we're also discussing implementing these CDL flows for interlibrary loans, which is really more of Katie's area.
Okay, Jesse, can you talk about it from a course materials reading list perspective?
Sure. Yep. So I'm sure many of you already know this, but the pandemic created a very urgent need for controlled digital lending for course materials. Previously, CDL was something that was discussed in the library community, but I personally had never heard it discussed in terms of course materials until the pandemic hit. It is such an obvious connection for me. It was kind of a big aha moment, especially as so many things that students are using in their courses are available digitally. And, the physical course reserves in the library are kind of the exception here. Even now, things are going back to normal. Libraries are doing physical reserves again, but users have different expectations. I think user expectations probably would have changed regardless of the pandemic, but certainly that, had an impact. I was actually talking to somebody recently who said they got a complaint from a student that physical course reserves is the only reason that student needs to step onto campus. So, this is really the student's expectation, user expectations of the college or the university, therefore the expectations of the library. They expect that things are going to be available virtually. So, controlled digital lending is a way to do that for course materials which cannot, otherwise be made available electronically. So with Leganto, the resources that are available through controlled digital lending can be accessed from inside the course alongside all of the other course materials. So Leganto kind of serves as the platform for the library to understand which resources are required for courses, and then from there interface with those workflows that Daniel was talking about for actually performing the scanning, setting the policies, making these resources available, and then again back to Leganto to expose these resources to students and make sure that they are able to access it. So the functional aspects, we're taking kind of the work of those functional aspects and thinking about the workflows here, again, how to get that information from faculty, how to make sure that those materials are easily accessible for students in their courses.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. Now, Katie, from the resource sharing perspective, can you highlight and discuss any plans moving forward in the area?
Yeah, so, as Daniel and Jesse alluded to, it's kind of a new thing. Well, it's been around a while, but it really came surging back to life, I think, as a real hot topic through the pandemic. And from a resource sharing perspective, it's complicated because the scenarios that Daniel and Jesse just talked about are about the institution and the institution's access to the copy of the book, the physical copy, and that loan to copy ratio that Daniel mentioned as well. So we've been working with the community to understand more about CDL within the context of resource sharing. And, we do have placeholders on our roadmap for this year to start to really add functionality to Rapido. What it means is that a library would be able to configure controlled digital lending for resource sharing, and that really what needs to happen before that is that an institution needs to establish their own risk tolerance on that loan to borrow ratio, because the library needs to understand what they're kind of getting into a little bit with this model from a resource sharing perspective. So if a library has one copy and that book is on OpenStax, but the digital copy is on loan through resource sharing, how should we handle that in our systems? What should Alma do, if a patron tries to check out that book, if a patron would try to check it out? Or when a digital copy is on loan, should the physical copy be taken off the shelves, for the duration of that digital copy's loan? So it's a pretty complicated area, and the timing of these loans and what we do with the physical copy and how all of that works is really something that we are working really hard with the community to get our head around. It's also, again, with resource sharing, it's important to understand whether a library views itself as part of a shared collection or a shared system, because that risk tolerance within that shared system might be different from out with that shared system. So with the wider interlibrary lending community, it might be slightly different risk tolerance about what they're willing to offer in terms of CDL. So as I say, it's on our roadmap. We're going to work really closely with the community. We're very focused on the configuration pieces of this to facilitate controlled digital lending for a library. So yeah, a lot more to come in 2023 on CDL and resource sharing.
Thanks a lot, Katie. We all look forward to that. Let's go to the next topic, which is linked data. Lily, this is your domain of expertise. So we're going to start with the first question. We'll go one by one. What's the importance of and the direction of linked data?
So the world of information is connecting. It's so important not to let libraries be left out. I'm a librarian. I've cataloged my first book when I was 10. I lived across the street from a library, and I'd show up every morning in the summer, and eventually they put me to work. And I believe in libraries, in what they do, and I believe in libraries as a source of quality knowledge, because the internet has so much information, and so much of it is, to put it delicately, inaccurate. And people go to where the information is easiest to get, not to where the information is best. So we have to have libraries information, quality information, easy to access. We have to have it out there. We have to have it easily searchable in Google-like ways that people understand. And linked data is one of the ways to do that, because librarians understand information and they understand discovery, but it's changed over the years. So it used to be about access points. So I'm looking for an author's name, or I'm looking for a book's title. And it's not so much that anymore. It's still important. And having access points like subjects, it's still important. But it's also important what computers can discover. And if I ask Google a question, can it find the relevant book in my catalog? And can I get into the library's catalog from there? Can I go to Discovery and ask complex questions and find the relevant books or resources or articles in the library using these complex questions that people are used to asking? And that's not so much about the older access points, the classic access points. It's about getting the data connected. It's about getting computers to understand what your data means and what's linked to what. It's about semantic networks of information. And that's what linked data is about. So bringing that into the world of libraries is really important to keep us relevant in today's information world. And it's critical to keep us relevant in this information world, because we're like the life vest against, fake news and fake data and misleading information that is everywhere. And you go to the library and you get good answers from people who understand answers. So that's why it's so important that we're not left behind and we're part of that linked data world. And we put our information out there and we let people in and open our catalogs to the world.
Thanks a lot, Lily. Age of 10, huh, for the first cataloging you book.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I'd be interested to know if anybody's actually done anything prior to the age of 10.
It probably wasn't very good. Very basic. Very basic computer cataloging.
The next question on the topic is, how can libraries leverage and utilize linked data today, particularly in services like Alma and Primo?
So linked data is going in a lot of directions, and the community is really thinking about it as we go. And one of the ways to really leverage and utilize linked data is being part of that process. So there are so many groups doing amazing, amazing things, from thinking up the formats and improving on the formats and standardizing and discussing the needs and how to implement. And we have a working group in Ex Libris of Ex Libris users who are working with us about linked data and about the community needs and impact how we're developing it so that they will be able to use it. So there's a lot of ways to influence. And we already have some capabilities, and we see them in all sorts of products out there. We have Vega is doing linked data in discovery, for example, innovative. And in Alma and Primo, we have automatic enrichment in linked data when you publish, so that, like I said, you can open your information out to the world and you can have links going in and out. We have data points, access points, where you can see records from the outside and you don't have to go into the catalog, and you're able to, put in a URI and have an endpoint and see the data from there. And we're working all the time to improve that. You can use it in discovery. We have several customers that did amazing things where they use APIs to get our automatically generated URIs for linked data sources like VF or Library of Congress or Wikidata, and they create info cards by going there, getting information and presenting it in discovery, so the user can get information on the author that wrote the book that they're looking at. So a lot of libraries are doing really, really amazing things with linked data already, and this world is in constant development, and there's more and more that you can do all the time.
Great. So as far as the last question provides you an opportunity, I think that you mentioned a couple of things in your previous response, but in terms of the future, are there short or long-term developments on the horizon that you'd like to highlight?
Well, there's lots. We're very much into it. I'm very excited about it personally. And so, for example, the info cards that I discussed before, that some of our customers built themselves using the linked data URIs that we provide, we're going to do that. So you can, if you have Primo VE, you'll have info cards automatically without the library having to put in the work and the expertise. We want to support BibFrame as our first linked open data format, and then move on to other formats as well in the future. We're really focusing on importing into Alma and exporting from Alma because, like I said, it's so, so important to be connected, to be open to the world. It's linked open data, and being part of this ecosystem of databases and information sources. We have cloud apps that allow you to enrich your MARC records before going to BibFrame and linked open data formats. The existing MARC format can be enriched with URIs, and we have a cloud app that can do that from Wikidata and other sources. So there's a lot that libraries can do today, and we're working on adding sources to that enrichment process. So we have so many plans, and we're working, like I said, with the community, with the working group, on prioritizing them and understanding the needs and catering to those needs. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about what's coming.
And we can tell your excitement. It's great. Let's move on to the next topic, and we're going to talk about EILL and eBook ILL. And this is in the domain of Katie. So Katie, what's the importance of EIL and eBook ILL to libraries these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been important to get the item to the user as fast as the library can. But technology has enabled us to offer e-delivery of items to end users. And I think, anyone who's not necessarily familiar with resource sharing and ILL, back in the day when a library received an ILL request from another library, journals were pulled off stacks, they were scanned, photocopied, they were shipped, even put in the post, not even scanned and sent electronically. And that might still happen. Some countries and jurisdictions, copyright or licenses may limit some aspects of that workflow. But I think certainly today in the US and in the UK, where I am right now, requests for articles and book chapters are largely filled with a digital copy. So an article at if it's the lending library, they will download the article from the platform that the journal is on. They will send it electronically directly to the end user, perhaps, and that's made available to the end user, and it's downloaded by the end user. So that shift hasn't happened overnight. It's taken many years. So, journal platforms have been around for 20 years or something now, perhaps. And so it's probably taken the best part of, 8 to 10 years to get to a point where we have really nice workflows now for journal holdings. Metadata has to be accurate and holdings have to be accurate. They're really critical for EILL and for streamlining that workflow. But I also want to take a moment and praise the libraries for renegotiating licenses as well. So libraries have worked really hard to make sure that they can fill ILL requests from licenses and supply those materials electronically as well. So while workflows have adapted over time and we've made sure that technology keeps up with what is possible, making sure those licenses enable resource sharing has been a real game changer as well. So that's great. That's journals. What about eBooks? So eBooks, well, there are a lot of moving parts, and we're kind of in a position where we were with journals a good number of years ago. So there's publishers, there's licenses, there's platforms, there's aggregators, and there's workflows associated with all of that. So what we learned from journals can be used with eBooks, but it's a slightly different beast. Licenses are different, publishers' terms are different. There's a lot to figure out. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think our colleagues on the ProQuest Books side have been running a whole ebook ILL pilot over the last 12 months. And, a certain number of publishers have been on board with that pilot, and we've had some great feedback. So we'll be working with the ProQuest Books team again in 2023 to start to dig into what those workflows should be, what that should look like, and integration in terms of what licenses and so on need to be part of that process to streamline as much of that as we possibly can. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we can solve the ebook ILL problem over the course of the next couple of, I'd say maybe within the next year, at least on a technical level, we can solve the problem and think about how we really move that ebook conversation forward, because it's been around a long time. And I think we have an opportunity now to introduce some efficiency there and make it possible to lend ebooks through resource sharing.
Okay, thanks a lot, Katie. If you want to add more, or if you want to just say that you just said some of this, is there anything specific that vendors such as Ex Libris is doing to move EILL and ebook ILL forward?
We're working really closely with the books team at ProQuest. We have them, I was on a call earlier with them to really understand what's happening. I think there's a lot of work to do with publishers and licenses, as well as the platforms and the workflows. So there are many different work streams to work out. There's a lot of devils in the detail with something like this.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to make some final remarks and go to some general Q&A. We've had some people submit some questions. So we've touched upon these few areas of importance to libraries. Now let's spend a few moments wrapping up the conversation and weaving in the concept of community involvement and openness in relationship to some of these areas. Do you guys have any comments or suggestions for librarians that we've talked about today?
So I would say embrace the community. We have an amazing, amazing global community of librarians that are collaborating, that are helping each other, that are doing so many amazing things to promote knowledge, to promote information sharing, to give good answers and quality knowledge to the world out there. We're seeing it all the time. There are mailing lists of Ex Libris customers that I follow just to see. Everyone's always so helpful and so nice about it. We have collaboration tools, and we see people sharing analytic reports that they created for their libraries, amazingly complex report that any other Alma library can use. sharing their setting for import so that people using the same vendors and getting the same information don't need to do it and just get it for free because they shared it. Putting in time and effort in the community catalog, contributing bib records to the community zone. People are amazingly helpful, and when thousands of users come together to help each other, it has a real impact. And also, our users shape the product through voting in Idea Exchange and then using the mailing list to say, did you see my cool idea in Idea Exchange? Why don't you vote for me? And it works. People actually take the time and go and vote for those ideas. We see the numbers. So people are really there for each other and help shape the product together. People dedicate so much time to be in focus groups that we go to get opinions and help prioritizing and advice on how to develop things. And people just spend so much of their own time promoting the product for themselves, for their libraries, but also for everyone else. So just embrace the community and take an active part in it. It's an amazing experience.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lily. Daniel, do you have any thoughts?
No, really to repeat what Lily said, I won't repeat it, but really she read out my thoughts. And really, just to understand that whatever challenge the library comes across, we should always remember that someone has already come across a challenge, analyzed the options and so on. And therefore, I think it really gives that sort of comfort zone, which will help institutions find the best practices.
Okay, thanks. Katie, how about you?
So resource sharing wouldn't exist if it wasn't for community and libraries' willingness to share their, huge collections that they have and make them available to the wider community. So, our role in resource sharing is to provide the tools and the network and the capabilities that really facilitate the community to do the work. We don't do the work. It's the libraries who are the end user places a request. It goes through to a lending library somewhere in the world, and within just a few hours right now, that request will be filled, and so that to me is just a magical thing. And that's one of the reasons I've loved being a part of resource sharing is we just provide the tools. It's the libraries who do the work.
Fantastic. And Jesse, do you have anything to add?
These are some tough acts to follow here. I feel like I'm sort of getting goosebumps as you guys are talking. So I'll say ditto on all of that. Maybe the only thing to add here is to also think about your community on your campus as well, the faculty and students you work with, but also partnering with other groups on campus, Center for Teaching and Learning, writing centers, student groups, student success, wherever it may be, building out those relationships, showing the value of the library, understanding where people are struggling and how the library can help with those challenges. So I guess it's community, the Ex Libris community, partnering with us, partnering with each other, partnering with libraries as a whole, and then also looking for those other partnership opportunities on your campus.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jesse, and thanks everybody else for answering all those questions and covering those topics. We're going to go to some Q&A that have been submitted. Before I get to asking some of those particular questions that have been asked, there are some resources in the resources section for people to take advantage of, including the slides. Even though there was mostly questions on slides, you may be interested in those. In addition to the fact, I'm going to move to the slide where everybody has their email address. So there you can direct specific questions to individuals if we don't get to your question or don't answer it to the full the depth that you want it to be. And then in addition, when you do leave the session, there will be a pop-up survey that comes up that we encourage you to fill out. But with that aside, let's just go to the questions. The first question that came in has to go to Katie. Katie, the Rapid ILL and Rapidos resource sharing services sound very similar. Are there any differences between them?
Yeah, so great question. Rapid ILL is, the best way to think about it is that it's an ILL network. Any library can join, and it's very much focused on requesting of articles and book chapters. So what we call in the trade non-returnable materials. So that's the first thing. Rapid ILL is very focused on non-returnable items, book chapters, articles. And that's okay, right? I mean, that's fine. But what's really unique about Rapid ILL, to go back to our previous point, is about community. So Rapid ILL, we ask libraries to commit to a service level when they subscribe to it. First, that they'll lend as well as borrow, so that we can make sure that there's a very equal distribution of requesting going on in the system, that there isn't what we call a net lenders who are, pinged all the time for requests, that it's very equitable in that sense. Second, we ask that libraries don't charge each other, that there aren't transaction charges for requests. So library subscribes to Rapid ILL and they can place as many requests as they like, and they pay for the service, and that's what the service is. There are no additional transactional charges. And the other amazing thing about Rapid ILL is that, we ask the lending, when a request hits a lending library, that the library will fulfill that request within 24 hours. And what that means is that the turnaround time on average within Rapid ILL is about 10 hours. And I hear these amazing stories of somebody going to sleep or leaving work on the West Coast, and the request has been filled overnight because it's moved to a library in another time zone, and they filled it while the library in the West Coast was asleep. And that's the kind of magic of Rapid ILL. Resource sharing, Rapido is different. Rapido is a resource sharing management tool. It handles consortial systems and ILL requesting. It includes Rapid ILL, it's worth saying. So Rapido integrates with many different ILL services to enable a library to have that one system, that unified approach that we talked about a while ago. But it also very tightly integrates with Alma and Primo. So it has very tight integration with workflows in Alma, and it works really beautifully in Primo for discovery. So a user can place a request for something that the library doesn't hold, and they don't have to leave the Primo interface, the discovery layer that the library is putting in front of the end user. So very different services. One is more about a system and an application that solves all of the different ways a library wants to work with resource sharing, and that's Rapido. And Rapid ILL is this network with these very unique service levels that really facilitate this very speedy, very, very speedy resource sharing network.
Okay. The next question that came in, this one's directed at you, Jesse. What are libraries doing to make it easier to work with the library, as you said?
Okay, great. I think the biggest thing here is just try not to have people jumping through hoops to use the library. So if we take course reserves as an example, the traditional course reserves model requires that faculty go to the library website, find a particular place on your library website where they fill out a form. The form includes things like the call number of the books that they plan to use. This really isn't in line with how faculty work. It's a lot of extra work for them, and also kind of the value that they get from this is somewhat minimal. Of course, they're providing access for their students, so it is worth doing, but it's really outside of what they're doing. Leganto, of course, is flipping this approach and making it easier for faculty to use library resources, without having to go out of their way to use library resources, making it easier for the library to know what's being used so that you can help support access to course materials. But even just taking Leganto out of the equation, look at those faculty workflows. What else are they doing? They probably have to tell the bookstore what they're using. Can you get the information from the bookstore instead? I'm talking to a lot of schools who are looking for those opportunities to get the information that the library needs, but in a way that doesn't require the faculty to, as I said, jump through those hoops to work with the library. Look at those user workflows, the things that they're doing that aren't tied to you. And from there, I think you can look for the opportunities to embed yourself into what your end users are already doing every day.
Okay. Another question that came in, Lily, this one's for you, I believe. It's a little bit technical. Does Ex Libris have any plans to implement triple store graph database technology to promote linked data capabilities?
So yes, we're looking into that technology now, and I think maybe I'll give some details so everyone on the call can follow on what that means. So triple store graph database is another way of thinking about storing data. So we talked before about access points like author and subject and title, which allow me to search for information like what are all the books in the catalog that are about the Middle Ages, right? Triple store looks at information as a collection of triplets of, I have an entity, say I'm an entity, my name is Lily. My profession is a librarian, so that's one triplet. Lily works as a librarian. I write short stories, so in the genre of science fiction and fantasy. So Lily, genre, science fiction and fantasy. And I'm employed at Ex Libris, so Lily employed at Ex Libris. And all these triplets sort of create a semantic network that allows me to ask really complex questions like, which companies out there employ librarians who write science fiction? And that's not really a question we can answer in the classic way that we preserve data, where we have, like, we might have a book that is by a writer, and we can say, so who did this writer write with? Or what books did this writer write? Or what other books do we have in the same subjects? But we can't ask the questions of which writers that were born in the same year do we have in the catalog, and things like that. So it's just a different way to store the metadata, and it allows answering all sorts of really cool questions. And we are looking into it. Like I said, or maybe I didn't say, but Innovative has Vega, and Vega is working with the triple store graph databases to allow such discovery. So we're in touch with them. We're learning this. We're looking into the possible technologies, and we really, really hope to bring that soon because we think it's so cool.
Thanks. Another question that's come in is more of a general one, and if whoever wants to identify themselves as answering it, please do so up front. Digital accessibility has become an expectation. Do you see publishers moving to make articles in online databases more accessible and or in resource sharing?
Well, I'll take the resource sharing piece. I think, as I said in my remarks about EILL and eBook ILL, that journal content on digital platforms and the way that libraries have negotiated their licenses has meant that in some countries, in some jurisdictions, I'll caveat all of this, that EILL is very much part of the here and now of resource sharing. So, I would say that shift has happened in some countries, in some jurisdictions, but not all. So I don't think I can speak to the accessibility of publisher platforms. I don't know that any of my colleagues want to take that on. But from a resource sharing perspective with regards to the ILL, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Okay. There were a couple of questions that came in with regards to info cards. First question was, what is an info card? And the second question was, when will info cards be integrated as part of Primo VE?
So info cards allow me to, when I search for a book and I find an author, say I'm searching for Dracula, Bram Stoker, and I can click on this icon and see his photo, when did he write, some information about him, some information on his work, and you'll be familiar with it from Google, right? If I'd Google Bram Stoker, I would get like on the side his image and a blurb from Wikipedia and all sorts of information, like key information from all sorts of sources. So we are now looking into being able to do that first with Wikidata. So just the image, a little blurb of information, some useful information about them, just enriching the patron's experience when they find something and they want to know about the person who created that something, to be able to, with a click of a button, get that information and not have to go outside my catalog and Google that person, right? Because I don't want people to go outside of my discovery system if I can help it. I want to bring that information into it and help them find it there. I want to be a one-stop shop for all their needs as much as I can. So that's the idea of info cards. Like I said, we're working on it today, and we hope during 2023 to have it come out. It'll be a gradual rollout, so we'll start with authors and creators and Wikidata, like I said, but we're already on it, exploring, finding technical solutions. So I hope that during 2023 it will come out for all PrimoV customers.
Okay, we're near the top of the hour. We do have a couple of questions that came in that we haven't been able to answer yet. But to be respectful of everybody's time, I just want to encourage those people where we didn't answer those questions. You can email Katie Birch at clarivate.com for resource sharing type questions. Lily Dai at clarivate.com for the linked data types of questions. Daniel, you can email Daniel any type of question, and I'm sure that Daniel will come up with an answer. He does a lot on the controlled digital lending side and also on the Alma side, and then Jesse on Leganto and the course reading list. So I want to thank all four of you today for participating in this panel discussion and sharing your knowledge in those areas in which you're experts at. And I want to thank Library Journal and all the community members that have participated with our efforts in these areas, as well as attending this session today.